What is going on today, guys? And welcome back to another episode of Fix It Garage and our EJ22 build. Last time, we got that really bad news about the crank. Well, today, I have some really good news. We're not gonna have to tear this engine apart, and it will stay a head gasket tutorial. What did I find out? Well, actually, I was able to have somebody help me fix this crank. I'm gonna show you guys here in a minute what it looks like. But we were able to fix the crank, so we can go ahead and we can start putting this engine back together today. I took this engine to my work, and someone that I'm friends with looked at it and said they could weld it. So what we did is where that divot was that you guys saw in the last video, we went ahead and we welded material in, and then we filed it down smooth and kind of rebuilt the keyway hole, which you guys are looking at right now. And it turned out really nice. It works, it's functional, and we can put this engine back together. It's not perfect, not even close, but we are able to use it and we can put this engine back together now. And it will work just fine. We just gotta make sure that we tighten the crank pulley bolt correctly when this is all done, which we're gonna do. So with that being said, I think the best place to start putting this back together is putting the heads on. So let's go ahead and let's start off by putting one of these heads on, and then we'll go ahead and put the other one on. First thing you need to know when you're gonna put on the cylinder head is you need to make sure that you clean the mating surfaces. Now the cylinder heads, which I showed you guys in the last video, are nice and cleaned up and ready to go. The block is also now cleaned up and ready to go. I cleaned it up at work using some methods that I'm not gonna show you on this because they're not really something I would recommend doing yourself. You should always have a professional clean up your block mating surfaces and your cylinder heads. That is not something you should be doing in your garage typically. There are ways to do it, but if you are going to do that, you guys should look into it and research it yourself to find your own methods that you want to clean your block and heads with. But now, we've got everything cleaned up, so we're ready to put on the new head gasket. So here's our new head gasket. These aren't the new style multi-layer steel head gaskets. These are actually an OEM Subaru head gasket. To help make sure that these seal and last a long time, I actually like to spray these old style gaskets with some copper head gasket spray. So I'm gonna go ahead and put some copper head gasket spray on this, and then we'll put it on here, and then we'll get the head bolted up to it. So here's our copper head gasket spray. We put it on here. It is very, very tacky. I like to put it on the whole thing. So now we can go ahead and we can set our head gasket on the engine and make sure that everything lines up. Next, we'll go ahead and we'll take our cylinder head and we'll set it on here now. So here's our freshly machined cylinder head. We're gonna go ahead and carefully set it down, making sure we put it on in the right direction and we get these holes on these dowel pins. We wanna be very careful doing this. Okay guys, heads on. There's no bolts on it yet. We're gonna use brand new Subaru head bolts. We're not gonna do head studs on this. This is not gonna be a high powered engine. We don't need head studs. We can run the OEM head bolts. I like to put a little bit of anti-seize on the threads when I do brand new head bolts. Some people use oil. Personal preference for me is anti-seize. I've used it for a very long time. So let's go ahead and put some anti-seize on them, and let's get these things bolted down. Got the head bolts now set in here. They're just barely touching the head to seat the head. Now we need to torque it. Subaru has a very interesting torque sequence for these. You torque them to 22 foot-pounds, then 51 foot-pounds, then you loosen all of them 180 degrees, Then you loosen them all a second 180 degrees. Then what you do is you're going to torque the 2 center bolts to 25 foot-pounds and the 4 exterior bolts to 11 foot-pounds. Then you torque them all an additional 90 degrees, followed by another additional 90 degrees. We're going to go ahead and start going through this torque procedure. So when torquing the heads, you need some kind of torque wrench, obviously. Now I do a lot of stuff at work that requires expensive torque wrenches, so I have this snap-on digital angle torque wrench, so I can do torque to spec and torque to angle. It makes it very simple. Most of you don't need something like this for an everyday wrencher. This is because I use it at my job a lot, and I need something this precise and expensive. There are other ways to torque to angle. They make things you can attach to your torque wrench or to a ratchet to get your torque to angle. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna use this to torque it to angle, or to spec and then to angle. Guys, that's one set of cylinder heads torqued. Let's go ahead and torque the other side now. Before I rotate it, just so you guys know, that 90-90 step is the hardest one of them all because it honestly feels like when you're torquing it, like the head bolts might break, but that's you stretching the bolt so it clamps onto the block so it holds that head down nice and tight. That's what you want. So that's usually the scariest step of doing this, but we are good to go now. We got this side torqued. Now we're going to rotate it 180 degrees and we're going to do the same thing for the other head. Okay guys, so I am an idiot. I forgot to hit the record button on either of my GoPros to record me putting the second set of head bolts on. But they are on and they are torqued. So now both heads are torqued. Next, we can go ahead and we can start assembling the insides of the head. We can put the cam on, we can put the rockers on, and we can put the valve covers on, so we can kind of start sealing this thing up a little bit. So let's go ahead and start by assembling this head. First thing we're gonna do before we put the cam in, we're gonna install the new cam seal. They make special tools for this. I recommend you look up the correct way to install it. I'm gonna use a little rubber mallet, but that's how I've always done it. So again, make sure you look up the correct way to do it. So we got the cam seal in. Next, we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna install the cam. But I don't want to install the cam completely dry. We're gonna use some assembly lube on all the internal bearing surfaces and on the camshaft itself, so it's easier to slide it into its permanent place. One side completed. So put the cam in, put the rockers on, and put the valve cover on using a new valve cover gasket and new washers on these bolts. I didn't stop to explain it very well, but I'll explain it a little bit better on the other side, kind of what we torqued everything to, so you guys can follow along in the process. But that is one cylinder head reassembled. It's ready for the cam gear, but we're not gonna put that on tonight. We're gonna go ahead and we're gonna reassemble the other side now. So here we are with the other side. You guys saw when I put the assembly lube in, so we're not gonna go over that again. We're going to go over before I put it all together, so I'm actually gonna show you about the rocker shafts. So here is a rocker shaft. This is for this head that we're about to put back together. These are pretty simple to install. You set them on there and you torque these 10mm bolts to 18 foot-pounds. What's nice about these is these are oil pressure driven rockers, so they're self-adjusting, so we don't have to adjust them, which is nice because it's one less step in this process. Normally, if you have like a nut and a screw here, when you put all this together and after you put the timing belt on, you would have to adjust the valves. But because these are self-adjusting, I don't need to do that. Oil pressure will adjust them after it starts. So on first startup, it's probably gonna make a lot of noise, but once it gets oil pressure, they will adjust and they will start to sound just fine. So the first thing we need to do is we need to do the same thing as we did before, which is get assembly lube on it and put that cam in And then we'll put the rockers on, and this one, unlike the other head, has this on the front, which is where your cam seal, and there's rubber O-ring here that goes on like this, and that helps seal it, and it also locates the cam sensor. They have you slide the cam in from the front, whereas on the other head, it goes in from the back. This one just gets a rubber cap on the back like this. This can just be installed into the back side of the head. I'm replacing it because they like to leak, so we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna install this one right now. Is now all lubed up. You don't ever want to install a cam dry, and you don't want it to be dry while it's sitting in the engine. I don't know when this engine's going to be started, so I want to have something there so it's not a dry engine. Front cover is on, so now we can put the rocker assembly on and torque that thing to spec. Okay guys, so the rocker assembly is now torqued to 18 foot-pounds. You just saw the correct torque sequence, which I had to look up. Next is going to be the valve cover. It is 3 10mm bolts. We're going to replace the washers and the valve cover gasket. We're going to put that guy on, and this side will be complete. Just like that, we have both heads reassembled, and I think that's where we're gonna end it for today's episode. Next time, we're gonna continue reassembling this engine, probably start working on the front side, maybe start getting it timed. We'll see where it goes. Thank you guys all for watching. As always, if you like what you saw, remember to smash that like button. Leave comments down below, and remember to subscribe so you don't miss any future videos on putting this engine together, and so you don't miss what this is going in. I keep teasing that it's not going in a Subaru, and I keep tagging you guys along. I promise when this is complete, I will tell you guys what it's going in. I want to finish this build first before I tell you what this is going in. It will be worth the wait. Thank you guys all for watching, and as always, on projects like this, you should never stop wrenching.